Hello, everybody. Let me get my favourite bit of the evening. There we go. Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. So tonight I am going to be looking at the final pieces of the Airfix 1/48 scale Sea King. So here is the aircraft to date. So almost there. It's been a bit of a trek. There have been some hills and some unexpected pitfalls along the way, but we are finally at that point. So just actually looking at the last couple of little pieces here, we can get cracking. Of wing mirrors. So one of the things I've been doing, there's only small pieces, you probably can't even see that. Let's get a white background behind it. See that is a wing mirror. So any small pieces like that, I've been attaching these little spring clips, so I do not lose them, because they are tiny weeny, and there are a lot of little pieces that we do not want to lose. There are also a couple of clear pieces that we need to deal with tonight, but I think we're just about there. So I do have a few things to say about the Sea King, but let's just have a little look where we are. So just bear with me a second, people. Let's see what we can actually get to. Right. Yes, so we have various sub-assemblies. So we have this is the folded rotor assembly. See that they're actually dark green on the top and black underneath. The underneath actually has a lot more interest than the tops, which is a shame because you will never see them. Much like a lot of the kit, actually, a lot of the good stuff is hidden, which is a shame. But there's a lot of stuff on display as well, which is really nice. So one of the things I like about the kit is that it's very modular. So, for instance, this is the tail rotor assembly. So you can build that in complete isolation to the rest of the kit. And there are several pieces like that. So, for instance, I built the undercarriage completely separate. I built this tail assembly. I built this tail assembly completely separately. I built the actual main rotor assembly separately. So if at any time you are kind of losing your mojo, you don't want to paint or you can't paint or whatever it is with the main piece of the aircraft, you do have other options to be able to kind of crack on with. So it's quite nice to be able to do that. Now, the build for the main part is pretty straightforward. It takes time, but the way that Airfix have engineered the kit, there aren't really many areas that you think this could have been done better or there's a bit of an issue here. The only ones I really had, this engine assembly at the top here, these cowlings, this was a little bit proud at the front here. The underlying piece was just a little bit high and it wouldn't sit flush there. Not sure what that was, whether it was just me, but it didn't take much to sort it, just a little bit of trimming and that was fine. The cockpit glass assembly is fantastic. So there's actually how many pieces? 1, 2, 3 main pieces, I think. That all goes on. It's a very complex shape. I was a little worried when I started it that I was going to put it on and it wouldn't fit somewhere. But actually, that fits perfectly. It's a really, really nice assembly, and hopefully you can see after the masking is all removed, it's beautifully clear. You get a nice view of that stuff that you've done inside. Not obviously a massive view because it is still quite a constricted cockpit, but enough that you can see some of the fruits of your labours. Obviously, all the inside, very modular. The thing, I think it's a helicopter thing. The detractors from the kit it's really fiddly. There's just lots of bits. There are a lot of decals. So or decals. There's Americans that always get cross when I say decals. Decals rather than decals. There are lots and lots and lots of stenciling, like all of these little, you see them here, all these all separate. Things like this is the door. Again, lovely that it's a nice little sub-assembly. This transparency actually press fits in. I obviously, you're supposed to glue it, and I did glue it. I just put a bit of PVA on there, but actually the engineering is so good you can just press fit it in and it does actually fit. But these decals around it, showing you where to cut in an emergency, are all separate. So there's 4 that go around, and then the warning stenciling as well. So I spent about, there's a helicopter going over, not a sea king, likely. But if you're picking that up on the audio, do have a helicopter going over at the moment. Just wait till that's finished, thank you. I spent about 5 hours, actually in excess of 5 hours. I spent 3.5 hours in one big session. I did another 1.5-hour session to almost finish it off, and then I still had to do things like all of the ones on the front, all of the ones underneath, and this little one on the winch here. So it takes a lot. If you're going to put all of the decals on, the thing is, I think it does make a difference. Maybe not all of the tiny little stencils, but certainly putting all the decals on does kind of make it. It kind of makes it feel finished. And then the other piece that I was a little surprised at was this danger sticker. Supposed to be a sticker on the real thing. The danger sign, stencil, whatever you want to call it, is in one piece. So you have to cut it yourself on both sides. Now, I get why you would want a single piece if you're going to do it with deployed rotors. But when you want to fold it, I would have thought there would have been a separate one, or a separate couple of decals for that, but there weren't. So a couple of little things where you just think, okay, I don't know why Airfix chose that particular direction. But overall, I mean, minor niggles. The kit overall is fantastic. It's a really, really nice job. And yeah, I'm not normally a helicopter. I can't speak tonight. I'm not I'm not normally a helicopter fan either, Jim. And as I think I said on some of the videos previously, both the unboxing and on the Airfix day, when I talked about whether are Airfix the best model company in the world, kind of relayed my experiences from the day. My enthusiasm for this is really my enthusiasm for the kit, the same enthusiasm that Airfix showed in developing it, really. It is a fantastic model kit. If you just approach it as a model rather than as a helicopter, it's a really nice piece of engineering. And I haven't really done any weathering on this at all. I've done some sort of bit of pre and post shading on the paint job. You probably won't be able to tell it here. On the actual build video, which I was editing today, you can see it a little bit more because it comes through more on the camera than it does in reality. I've done some subtle sort of weathering in terms of sun blanching from the top. So the top of this, you may just see it. You can see it probably there. I've done a little bit of lighter colour on the top, darker underneath to give that effect. But it's very subtle. I mean, your eye probably picks up on it subconsciously, but you can't really tell unless you're looking for it. But I thought actually what I would do is do a completely separate video on weathering this, because I want to finish the actual build, the review build, and then I think it would be worth doing an entire video on weathering this to a sort of more battered, used state. So hence I'm not going to do any weathering on this for the main build. So if it looks a little bit pristine in that respect, that is the reason why. So yeah, definitely worth. And I saw today a lot of announcements. Airfix's kits have started to arrive in stores. So if you want to order it now, you should be able to get it pretty much straight away. I think pre-orders are already going out, so it's a perfect time. So with that, all that preamble, I'm going to move the camera down onto the workbench and we can get those last few steps done. So bear with me while the camera adjusts to the differences in light. And I can get a little bit sorted. So here are all the fiddly little bits. This is the, I don't know what you call it, but the stop that goes underneath. This is this is the radar at the top. As I mentioned, we've got the two wing mirrors. It's bizarre to me that you get a wing mirror on an aircraft. This little drain tube which goes at the back here. These two, I presume they're pitot. Oh no, sorry, these are a couple of aerials again that go on. There are actually decals to go on these in the same way that there is a decal, I don't know, again, with StreamYard's compression and the YouTube compression. You'll see this on the stream, especially not with that light. So, just a bit. So this is again one of those antennae, and that actually has a decal on it. So there are decals to go on here. I'll actually not put those on tonight. Well, I say I won't. I'm unlikely to. Okay, I do have provision to be able to do that, but we'll see how we go. And you can actually read all of these if I get my nerd glasses on. A second. So it is a no handhold decal, because obviously you shouldn't go around grabbing the antennae and things on a helicopter to haul yourself up. Okay, so I think where are we going to start? Maybe we're going to leave the tail rotor assembly off actually till later on, because there's too many bits to actually fall off there, I think. Oh, while I'm thinking of it, these are actually the decals. I wanted to use everything that the kit gave you where possible. So these are the decals that are provided for the rotor. Not sure about them really. I think it's a nice idea, but they don't wrap all the way around, which leaves you an edge, which is not very realistic. So I think if you're stuck and don't want to paint these, they're okay. But ideally, I think you want to mask them off and paint them. I think that will give a better view. Again, you won't be able to tell really on the stream because of StreamYard's compression and YouTube's compression. But because I can only get 720p on streaming, I'm afraid that is a StreamYard limitation, because I'm not prepared to spend something like £60 a month for their version that allows you 1080p. So yeah, they're okay. Don't get me wrong, and they're cartograph decals, so the actual quality of them is fine. It's just, I think if they'd been a little bit larger, so you could wrap them around, and obviously from both sides, and then you can trim them, you get a better effect. But as it is, you do have like the ends of them just in the base color. So if you were to spray the things red and then put them on, but then why wouldn't you just mask it anyway? But anyway, all of an aside at the moment. So I think we're going to start off with putting on the undercarriage. So in fact, I've got it a little bit stuck there. The only thing I would say about this, and again, it's a helicopter thing, is there are a lot of stages in the construction which tell you, for instance, this winch goes on fairly early. And if you were to put it on when it's set, it's undoubtedly going to break off. So I have departed from the instructions on a number of occasions in order to just preserve assemblies, because otherwise I think things would break off. Again, it's a helicopter thing rather than an Airfix kit thing, but certainly, making it in sub-assemblies is very easy. So, for instance, I didn't put these on when they were indicated in the instructions because I tested it obviously first. But these, you can see there are actually a couple of lugs. Yeah, you'll see it again on the build video more than this. So there is a hole that sort of locates the undercap. I put it in the wrong side. A hole that locates the undercarriage. Those two lugs just go in the side pieces. This locates into the back and it just slots nicely in place. So there's nothing to stop you doing this. It's not like there are, big bay door things that are in the way or anything like that. I just need to put my glasses on because I can't see what I'm doing here. Here we go. So these lock really nicely in place. And a lot of this kit actually is almost, friction fit. So there's nothing actually, there's no glue on those now. But they friction fit in well enough that they'll just hold that place, which is useful, obviously, if you're constructing. And then you can just add a little glue. And you don't have to worry about the things falling off. And then the rear undercarriage leg just slots through this piece here into the back like so. And it has multiple contact points, which is good. A bit of a wiggle just to make sure we've got some decent contact there. And there we go. She sits on her undercarriage for the first time. So I think the detractor for me with helicopters is, painted it up, you kind of get it what you think is almost there, and then there are all these fiddly little pain in the arse pieces you've got to put all over the place. So one of the things that you notice if you ever see one of these for real is there are just now what I did there was push down a little too hard, and I haven't cemented that wheel in place. I've cemented the landing gear, but not the wheel, which is good because it gives us a little bit of a buffer. So I won't cement that just yet. Yeah, if you see the real things, they are a bit of a, well, not Heath Robinson, but they're certainly, as these things evolved, and you'll see this in the later ones especially, is as they evolved, they just added bits to them. Because the body of a helicopter isn't generating aerodynamic lift, and it doesn't have to be as slick as an aircraft, a fighter or a bomber or something, they did tend to just stick stuff on. So it's like, oh, we got this new aerial or radar or something. It's just like, yeah, just bolt it on here. I'll be fine. But like the way the Italians make cars. So this little radar bin just slots in at the back there. So a lot of the way that these go in are very nice. So again, this is very easy to do separately. And it's just got this little elliptical piece which just slots into the body. So it's nice because you can paint it up and just pot it in separately. You don't have to worry about contact points or anything like that. Nice and easy. You don't have to worry about painting the thing while it's on the aircraft. So it's nice in that respect that all these things being bolted on, and the way that this kit is engineered kind of replicates a lot of that. And you don't have to worry too much about painting all afterwards. But yeah, as I was mentioning, the kind of pain for me, and it's a helicopter thing, is that you have all of these little bits sticking out all over the place, and you really just want to be done with it. Aircraft, standard fixed wing aircraft have that as well, of course, but it doesn't seem to be to the same degree. So drain tube. So this goes in the back here. Now, it goes in there, but I'm not quite sure about orientation. So let's have a look at the instructions. Okay. So you can see I crossed out big sections of this. I don't know if you've not seen any of the other of these streams, you'll have seen one of the first things I did was go through the instruction book and cross out all of the areas that didn't apply to the version I was building. Because with 4 different versions, there are a lot of different things here. I mean, I missed out here an entire page because I didn't put the wheels up. So 121 to 127, those steps all deal with retracted undercarriage, whereas I went from step 128 through to 136 or 133. 136 goes to the tail wheel, which is obviously cool. So there were quite a lot of bits like that. Because there are quite a lot of options there, complete page I just scrubbed out because those are all to do with the B, C, or D versions. And let's see. This is so basically what I'm doing tonight is step 154. This is the majority of it. So these are all of the little, I would call them pain in the arse pieces. Now a lot of these have already been done. So things like these aerials on the underside have already been put in this pieces. This is kind of all of these little sticky out bits. Yeah, all of these, especially around this top piece here. So just put that aerial in there. And that drain tube just goes out, sticking at the back. pieces. So yeah, of course, at this stage of any model, you're trying to put pieces in whilst not fucking up other pieces. That hole is not quite big enough. Potentially because it's been painted. A couple of coats of paint. So the engineering on this kit is such that, you know, a couple of coats of paint, if I try not to scratch my surface, a couple of coats of paint will actually make the difference between something fitting and not fitting. There we go. There, that's much better. That sort of just goes backwards and slightly down, as it is. So, and again, a lot of these things, if you weren't seeking aficionado, you probably wouldn't notice if they were there or not. Make of that what you will. And there is that little tube. The issue I'm going to have, I can see, is where do I touch this that doesn't end up knocking something off. The radome, I think, is a good bet. Okay. Next relatively chunky thing is this bit here, which I believe, well, certainly on the real thing, is this kind of metal post, and it has a big chunky rubber stop at the end. I think it's in case, not if you're a clumsy pilot, obviously, but if the wind conditions or something try and take the aircraft away from you and whack the end down, it prevents that kind of thing. Don't know. Now, nicely, this is a handed joint, so it only goes in one way, so you can't get this wrong. But again, just a little bit of paint is enough to prevent it fitting snugly. So let's just make sure that is clean. But not so clean that I scrape all the paint off so it's visible. That would be bad. Okay, let's see how that goes. Definitely that up. Not quite there. Okay, there. Now, this actually connects to the sprue at this end. However, so it's not actually painted in the same way as the rest of it, which you think that might be an issue. Why didn't Airfix connect at the other end? I don't know why that is the case, why it didn't do that, but it's not too bad because this is actually, as I say, on the real thing, it's kind of rubber and the paint does flake off. Certainly did in some of the examples I saw at historic helicopters. So I'm actually going to just touch that with a bit of black just to represent that. Not that probably anybody will ever look at it, but there it is. There's that post. Now we start getting into the really fiddly little bits. So we have these pitot tubes. Presume they're pitot tubes at the front of the aircraft, which are very thin. Just trimming where they locate on the other piece of the sprue. I've cut them off, obviously, from that. And these pieces need to be bare metal, bare aluminium. But I'll paint those right at the end because they're just completely separate. So there we go. And again, these have these little, you can't see it on here, but they're kind of almost like a triangle shape, so they fit in to the front of the aircraft here. You might just be able to see these little dark spots there, these little divots. Maybe if I point with my scalpel, you can see just here on the other side. So I do need to know which goes on which side. D18, so the D17 is this side. D17 is this one. So let's snip that off. And then just trim the paint, that little nub off, just so that we get a nice tight fit. And also we have something for the glue to get hold of. Where did I put my tweezers? Tweezers, tweezers, where are you? Ah. Well, if they've disappeared on a live stream, that will at least provide me some evidence. Get rid of excess things here. I've got too many things on my bench. So this is, I think, when it starts to look a little bit insecty, when it gets its little antennae. And I just flick that somewhere over the... Ah, thank God for that. Whew. Bit of a buttock clenching moment there. I thought that had flicked off into my paints. That would have been very bad. Okay, I'm going to try that again, this time once more with feeling and Tamiya extra thin, or at least my homegrown equivalent, so that flicking isn't going to happen. There we go. Really, what I'd like is my tweezers here so I can push it from both sides at the same time. But actually, model knife has managed to do that. You can see its little antennae sticking out there. Mark, yes, everything is going well with the shop, thank you. I am going to post an update quite soon. There's a couple of little things I wanted to change before I did that. And I am going to ask for people's help, because the main thing that is stopping me at the moment is flooring, and the flooring company is not being cooperative. So I'm going to ask everybody to email them for me, just to show that the power of the collective can actually have an effect. But the shop's coming on really well. I've got signs coming on Thursday. The website, you can go to www.mansmodelmoments.com. There's nothing there at the moment. It's a holding page. You can enter your email if you wish to get notified when we open. But in the background, of course, I'm adding all of the stock to that. That's also going to be my point of sale. Inventory management. But yes, I think you'll see there has been a lot of progress when I post the update. So I wanted to wait till this weekend. So I'm going to actually record that over the course of this weekend, because in the UK, there's a bank holiday. So I have 3 days at the shop that I can show you exactly what's going on, because the shop's been extended. I've changed an awful lot since the last update, so I think it'll be quite a good one for people. But there was an awful lot of sawdust, which the 99% of, well, no, maybe 90% of has gone now. I want to get rid of a bit more of the products of my woodworking. I won't say skills, I'll just say woodworking. And yeah, then we can go ahead and show you all of that, because we are 95% of the way there, I would say. So hello, Doc Brown. When am I expecting to open? Should be the 2nd of September. That is the date I'm aiming for. If that slips, it doesn't matter for me, but I would like to be able to open then. I don't think there's really anything that should stop me. Even the flooring, you know, I'll have a temporary solution to that, but I'd really like a permanent one. But again, that'll come in the update. Yeah. So, see, that will sit there. So I think when I do the separate video on the kind of weathering of this and detailing of it, because I want to put in, not super detailing, because obviously I've just built it out of the box, but things like, you know, the tie downs for these rotors and stuff like that. There is a ton of super detailing you could do to this model. This rotor assembly is nice, but the actual rotor assemblies feature a ton of, I presume, hydraulic cables and other things that you could put on as well. So if you wanted to go absolutely nuts with the detailing on this, it certainly has the provision for it. So there's this little antennae, little beetle antennae at the front there. Now we have these no handhold antennae in white, which stick out in a couple of places. One of which is on the fuselage here. And they stick out at odd angles as well, for some god unknown reason. The other one goes here. Now these are holes I have drilled, and fortunately I have a drill which is too small and a drill which is a little bit too big. So I had to use the drill that was a little bit too big in order not to force them. Because the last thing I want to do is use excessive force. Most accidents that I've had in modelling have been due to excessive force of some sort or another, coupled with incorrect use of tools. So when I've stabbed myself with craft knives, it's because I'm applying too much force, not using something in the correct way. When I've broken models, it's usually the same thing. You know, I'd love to say that I never make mistakes. It's always, you know, the fault of something else. But in reality, 99% of the time I've made mistakes is because I have made a mistake. You know, I've been a klutz and applied too much force, or not thought, or rushed, and it hasn't ended well. The other one of these also goes on the same side. Now I've turned it around, of course, and right at the back here, just at the end there. Now it is getting to the stage now where I really don't want to handle this, because there's so many little sticky out pieces. But again, that is a helicopter thing, not an issue with the kit. Now the thing is, these, although they are small, are quite prominent because they are bright white against the blue of the aircraft, so I think they do make a bit of a difference. Although they do, again, look like they've just, someone's just come along and just been like, yeah, we need to stick this on here, it'll be fine. Just hammer it on. Okay. we have a couple of transparency pieces, X2. And you can see from this, I've got a lot of transparency pieces left over. So if you've got other projects that need blown windows, this is the ideal version to go for, because you've got three that you don't use. X2, where am I not looking? X2 is here. There we go. Adam Savage. I do like watching Adam Savage's builds when he just comes up with an idea and then wants to do it. I think Adam is... I don't think there's much pretense when you see him do those. You can see his passion for what he's doing. And I think it comes through because he does make mistakes. He does break things, you know, gets excited about stuff. And I think if you ever watch anybody and you get that kind of genuine enthusiasm, you know, it comes through. All right, so this goes underneath into this little space here, like so. Very good, very good. Now, oh, it actually goes the other way around because it's got a big divot. Yes, there we go. Perfect. In fact, it's so perfect that it now won't come out even though I haven't glued it. See, this is what I mean about this kit. Sometimes it fits too well. Now, one of the things I do want to do before I put that in, and I've done it with, I think, pretty much all of the transparencies, the little lights that are on this model, is I've used a chrome pen. This is liquid chrome. This is from a company called Molotov, or Molotov, I don't know whether you pronounce the W as a V or as a W, because I don't know the company. I haven't done any research on them. I just bought the liquid chrome. It has a couple of, these are the larger. The reason I'm using the larger is because if you get, let's see, what do we have around here? I have a piece of plastic here that I was using. Just like a plastic bag here, go a plastic bag here. You can actually, it's one of those push down and the stuff comes out. You can actually push down and then you can use a brush to actually use this as paint. So with all of these ones, I've been back chroming them, if you like, which just gives the appearance of that reflector that you get in a lamp, like so. You can see where I've chromed in there, little reflection. It is alcohol soluble, so I have some alcohol to clean it up with. These you can get on Amazon. I can't remember how much they were. They're not that much. They're pretty cost effective. And again, you don't use an awful lot. I actually bought it for touching up chrome parts. I got a Tamiya bike, which I haven't done before. And when you cut the chrome parts off, of course, you have a little nub, which is usually like a reddish, purplish kind of color. And then if you don't want to paint the whole thing, of course, something just touching up the chrome is kind of essential. So that's what I got these for. But they're really useful for stuff like this. Oleos as well. Oleo struts in landing gear, really useful for. To put that in, I'm going to use a little bit of PVA. I'm using PVA here because there is no real stress or force on this part. So it's not like it's a canopy which is going to get knocked up. I often put in World War II canopies with, well, I often put most canopies actually in with PVA. The problem with PVA is if you don't get good PVA, it's very easy to dislodge. But of course, for something like this, where you've got a tiny piece, which I keep dropping, it doesn't, especially one which is as well engineered as this. Now, I got it in once, and since then I've not been able to get it in. Couldn't get it out, now I can't get the damn thing back in. Okay, don't worry about being late. Wait, the fact is you're here, which is fantastic, thank you. And there's that little, I think it's like a drop-down lamp. Again, I'm not an expert on the Sea King, but that's that little bit done. So you can see now, look, you've got the two little horns, it's little antennae. You've got this antenna, which is actually part of the landing gear boom. That's been on all the way from the start. I'm absolutely amazed that it's still there and I haven't broken it off. You have these two aerials sticking out. You've got this radar, I presume it's radar because it's the color of a radar non-absorbing material, but antenna of some description at least there. You've got this drain tube, you have the winch. So there are very few places, and of course the landing gear, which is fairly it's fairly robust, but it's sticky outy. So you just got all this stuff all over the place. Okay, I guess we should start putting some actual chunky bits on. I guess I should have done that first, really. But so this door, this is the main door. I didn't bother painting this side because, hell, you're not going to see it. I'm going to have this open. I did think about having it kind of half open, so it's kind of just across, so the window is kind of just half across the fuselage there. But yeah, I think I'm just going to have it open. I think what I'm going to do with this is, again, I'm just going to tack this on with PVA. Because again, it shouldn't be exposed to any force, really. And that way, if I change my mind in the future, I can always do a little bit of a cheeky pulling it off and repositioning it. Okay. That PVA is not going to come out like that. Bear with me while I get a blob of PVA on this piece of plastic. Handy piece of plastic, always a good thing. Rather than throwing it in the ocean, use it to put bits of paint on, as the impromptu palette. Super glue. Super glue doesn't dry as quickly if you put it on to this sort of plastic. It inhibits the polymerization a little bit, so handy to have. Okay, you may actually just be able to see on there the difference in color. See where the PVA is around that window, but it really push fit into there. Didn't really need an awful lot, so hence just use the PVA to tack it on place. Okay. So I think we're just going to go with a little bit of PVA just at the top here, and along this, actually along the bottom of the door itself. We'll see how that looks. See if it doesn't fall off. That's probably the best thing. So I'd say the most awkward thing with this kit is deciding when to actually paint things. So if you're seeing the build, the main build video that I did on this, or I'm doing on this, will be out hopefully after the weekend, if I can get my editing together. When you're going to paint various assemblies in this, then kind of dictates how you put things together, because one thing I didn't want to do is build the entire thing with all these little sticky out bits, as I kind of tried to show as I go along, which would inevitably end up in destroying the thing, right? I would in no way be able to. I mean, I'm nervous about handling it here just on the stream. That's going to be, what, we're at 50 minutes now. And you just got all of these delicate little pieces going out everywhere. If I'd waited to this stage to paint, it would have been a nightmare. So, yeah. As with the inside, I didn't put in the 2 cockpit seats until I'd sprayed the inside, even though it tells you to do that, because access to behind the seats is almost impossible once you've got them in. So if you want to do any detail painting, you've really got to do it up front. But of course, I also wanted to, tiny spider. But I also wanted to make sure that you get everything tied into the same scheme, and because I was doing dry brushing and doing differential painting stuff, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. So I think a lot of the hard choices on this aren't really to do with the model itself. It's really, what are you planning to do with it? If you're not going to do the doors open and you're just going to close up the interior, your decision on whether to do any of that interior, then is very much up to you. You could actually, because you can't see really anything, there's a vague impression of stuff. But again, that's because I've got the doors open so you can see through, so you get light through. If you don't have that, I would say you could probably get away without doing the interior and still be okay. Even with this barn door wide open, what you can see there is an accurate representation of what you can see in reality, right? A vague impression of a seat. That's about it, because not a lot of light gets in there. That, of course, gives you the option of maybe putting lights in, putting LEDs in. I think there is room to do that within the fuselage. So I think the kit gives a lot of possibilities of what you could do with it, I think. Okay, I think time for this tail assembly to go on. A moment that I have been putting off for a while. So I'm going to scrape the paint from the side of this because I want this to be a really good solid joint, which is easier said than done. And a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. Because I'm going to try and scrape the paint off the connecting surface without screwing up everything else. There you go. Now actually, because of the way I painted this and sprayed it, I've not really got any spray inside, so that's a good thing. So let's use the old cement once more. Once I've actually got a decent brush. So I'm not using the supplied Tamiya brush here because I want more solvent in than that thing to carry. This is a really clever little way of doing this piece. this little piece that covers both hinge sides. So that is absolutely painless, which I can imagine if they'd done it other ways wouldn't be the case. You can see that was a piece of cake. This, of course, the main rotor assembly. I don't think I even need to cement this. Goes in like so. Move this piece of paper, tissue, plastic. So now really all I have are the entrance doors and the wing mirrors, and then we are done. And of course I've got to paint the metal on the little antennae. We'll pretend that's done. So the nice thing about this little door, this two-fold door piece, is that this one here, let's just take this off so I don't end up screwing things up again. Now, again, I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, and I've got to be careful that I don't catch anything. But in the roof of this, just let me see if I can get some more light here. I've got a little extendable light here. Let's bring this across. Not knocking too many things over. There we go. See if I can position that so you can get a bit of a better view inside without me blocking that too much. Okay, there we go. I can't actually see the computer screen now. So here on the roof, just at the top here, there is a slot that this goes into, which I can't see, of course, at this angle. Bear with me. There. So it's a really nice little piece, and this is what I was saying on the Airfix video, is, if I can not drop it into the thing. The way that Airfix, the current Airfix designers and team are approaching modeling is not just from a manufacturer making models, but also from a modeler's point of view. So putting a slot there that this little thing slots into at the right angle when you're at this stage of the build is just such a relief. You're not having to do some pain in the arse thing with some little, round things that catch in somewhere, or it doesn't have to go on before, or you just have to glue it butt join, have a really weak join. So that kind of thing is a small thing, right? But it requires forethought in engineering, because you've got to actually engineer that little place. But it just makes the modeler's life so much easier. So stuff like that I really appreciate. And I think Airfix deserve acknowledging for that kind of thing. Again, if I don't drop it inside the aircraft, which I have. See, this is where I'm glad I did all of the windows open, or doors open, sorry. Now, where did I put those tweezers? Oh, idiot, they're right there. And then for this door, which I have weathered it a bit because, you know, it has these treads on and it's going to get dirty, let's face it. This piece just joins it on the edge here and just goes down. So that is what we need to clean up there. Sorry, I've not been paying attention to the chat. Let me just scroll back a little bit, just make sure I've not missed anything here. Jim, glue of choice for transparencies is just plain old PVA, Elmer's glue in the US. I've used all sorts of different PVAs. It doesn't really make that much difference. What I'm using at the moment is Archway Strong PVA Medium. I mean, it comes in is this a litre bottle? I think it's a litre. Yeah, 1 litre. I've actually used half of it to decant to dilute down to use for diorama for, you know, bedding scenery and stuff down. Lid is on the glue bottle. Devon and Cornwall area, late November. Shop is in Wincanton in Somerset. It's just off the A303. So if you're going down, most people go A303. So it is literally, I'd say, less than 2 minutes off the A303. It's one of the reasons I liked the shop location. The shop itself is because of where it is. Do not find the more complex the model, the more stages. Here we go. I've never done that before. I just realized that I could do this, couldn't I? More stages required. Yes, definitely. This one, because you have the interior, as you'll see in the full build video that I'll show, I would say a good third is actually inside, you know, getting all of that. Once you get to put the model together, I would say you're at least halfway through. I think the thing that's taken me the most time on this are the decals on it. Painting it actually took surprisingly little time. You know, masking these canopies. There are things which are a pain in the arse, which are a pain in the arse of any model, right? Masking. I don't know anybody that likes masking. This wasn't particularly fun. I ended up using mostly. I started off using parafilm. So those of you who don't know parafilm, it's a film which was designed for laboratory closures. If you think of it, it's like thick cling film, and it's good when it works, and it's a pain in the arse when it doesn't. So I started off using that. It was taking a bit too much time, so I ended up using good old artist masking fluid. This is Winsor & Newton. The label has long since fallen off, and because the canopy lines here are even for these, so for these, really I don't know how you can just see them here, these very fine pieces, which I think are, you can open the window in the Sea King. They've got these little sliding windows like old 1970s cars had in the back. Yeah, so you can slide the window out so you can smoke when you're flying. Basically, I used liquid film, because even those are raised enough that you can get the liquid of the liquid masking, the stuff, to flow in And I just use one of these little micro applicators just to push it up to that. If you just push it up and like along, it will try to retract across, but when you've got enough on and get the film all over it, then the surface tension holds it in place until it dries. And then usually I'll go over it with another coat just on top, not always the edges, just on the middle. And that gives you enough of a grip to pull it off, because sometimes that masking film, if you get it too thin, is difficult to come off. Vallejo polyurethane gloss varnish. Now maybe the community can help, because I've never used that. Correct ratio to thinner. I would say there are never distinct correct ratios. I would say that's probably a good starting point. It depends what you're going to use in it. If you're going to spray it, airbrush it, you probably want more thinner. Usually the proportions that paint companies tell you the amount of thinner to paint you need are grossly understated, and you end up needing more thinner than they quote. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna have to bite the bullet, aren't I, and put this door in. So let me get the old trusty paintbrush again. So I often use a paintbrush to apply liquid cement rather than the enclosed integral brush, because one, it does hold a little bit more, and it holds it in a better way, so it doesn't all just gush out the first time you touch something, like sometimes the brush does in the glue pot. And also I just find it gives you fine control. Okay, I just moved my door the other side. Not a problem. Yeah, so there's that upper piece of the door. And we just need to get the lower piece. I'm going to get it the right way around. Now, obviously, there are pieces like the what do you call it? There's a cable which obviously stops this door from going too far on the real thing. That's not included with the kit, so that's something you can add. And I think that does add quite a lot, because it's quite a prominent feature of the actual aircraft. There is the open door. Let's turn this around so you can see that. There we go. Which just leaves us with the main rotors to put on. There we go. At least 99.6% of XV666 completed. Now, I haven't put on these little tiny wing mirrors as yet. Now, one of the things I did want to do with those is, of course, use the old chrome pen. So let's see if I can do that without losing them. I do find these holders are incredibly useful. Obviously, I use them to spray things with. There we go. That. Focus on that. There we go. Nice little mirror. Yeah, obviously I do use them for spraying, but they're just useful for just holding things. So with small pieces like this, like these tiny, tiny little mirrors, what I did in this case, and try to do if I don't forget, is if I'm approaching a sprue, just grab one here. So say I needed this piece here, right? This tiny piece here. I'll actually attach this first onto the piece. Be careful I don't knock the helicopter while I'm doing this. So I'll attach the piece on that, then I'll trim it off, and then I've got it held so it doesn't end up springing off into the carpet monster. So I found that is just a really useful reason to have these. And obviously it holds them if you're brush painting as well, so it's not just for airbrushing. So I'd really, really recommend these. You can get them, again, you can get them off Amazon. You can get dedicated blocks to stick in them. I don't use those because I think they're too close together. You can stick them in anything. I use this piece of aluminium channel with a piece of wood with holes drilled in. I've got some cushioning support inside that just stops them moving around. It's heavy enough that it will stay in place. You can put relatively chunky things on. So I don't think I'm actually going to put these on the stream because I want that chrome to dry, and then I'll just pop them in, and just putting those in isn't really going to be terribly interesting because they just go in on the sides, little holes for them. So it is what it is. But that is, I think we're going to call it pretty much, for the most part, XV666 in its original HAS1 format. Done. The white aerials are actually stanchions for the HF aerial. Yes. Okay, there. That reminds me, actually. Yeah, when I was at the historic helicopters, that's right. It actually comes from these little points, doesn't it? Through. Yeah. Another thing that, again, if you wanted to super detail this, it's a pretty prominent thing, that aerial. It's good for garroting you accidentally when you're walking around them. So yeah, another piece that you could, depending on how accurate, of course, how detailed you want this model to be. I'm not sure I'm going to bother. It's got enough little sticky out bits as it is, but it is, I mean, it's a nice looking thing when you've got it here in your hands. It's a big chunky beast. It's a good chunk of time, and points of the decaling, I was kind of despairing for my sanity going through doing those stencils. But the great majority of it was actually a very nice build. So I think it's a definite buy if you like the Sea King. I think it's a no-brainer. If you like helicopters, I think it's also a no-brainer. I think if you're into 1/48 scale aircraft, it's a good model. I mean, it is a really nice model. Would I want to do one again? Probably not. I think doing one for a non-helicopter modeler is enough. Having said that, it's something different that I wouldn't normally have chosen. It'll be in display in the shop. I do have a little display there, which I stick all these models on. And it looks pretty handsome. I mean, I chose this color scheme because I think it's kind of the original intended use of the Sea King as an anti-submarine helicopter in the Royal Navy. And I think the weird blue color that it is, this sort of blue slate gray kind of color with the you can see the roundels there make it look almost grey, but in person it's more blue. It's a strange colour. A lot of debate about this colour. I actually used a mixture of colours. I used Tamiya. I used sea blue as a base, and then I added Tamiya medium blue to it, and Tamiya blue as well in different proportions. I've added a little bit of white just to lighten it, to do the top sort of fading. So it isn't actually one colour. This aircraft is a mix. And reading some forums from people who actually worked on these things, they weren't painted one colour, and the paint was notorious for coming off in weather and being repatched and stuff. So I think it gives you a lot of leeway in terms of weathering. So, as I said, I think I will do at some point, I don't promise this is going to be anytime soon, another video on this when I actually weather it. So I don't want to actually glue these rotors on, because I may actually come back and when I weather it without those, because I think it'd be a nightmare trying to do it with that on. Whereas I think the rear rotor assembly, I think, is actually fine. It's very solid, and these rotors aren't actually glued on. So there we have it. Airfix's 1/48 scale Wessex Sea King HS1 XV666 in its slate grey blue livery. As complete as she is going to get for the time being. As I say, I'm editing the full build video on this at the moment. So depending on my weekend, hopefully that will be out either after the weekend or early next week. I'll also be posting an update on the shop. And just to remind everybody, if you are into modern aircraft, I do have the Man's Model Moments Challenge. So if you'd like a Man's Model Moments F-35 challenge patch, you just need to get in touch with the email on the channel. That's manmomo.am@gmail.com. Send me a picture of an uncompleted F-35 kit and your completed model from it. Depending where in the world you are, I do ask for a contribution for postage for this, so it's not going to cost me a fortune. I've learned from Moss, and I'll send you all of these patches as well, Man's Model Moment patch, and some stickers and whatever else I've got hanging around at the time. And I'll put all of those on a video together in, I don't know, however long, 3 months, 6 months, depends on volume. But if you want to know what model to actually do, I've got a couple of videos reviewing all the 1/72 scale F-35s, so check those out. It is, yeah, Stan, it is a beautiful looking model, and having looked around several Sea Kings, sat in a couple at historic helicopters, it's I mean, it really does look the part. There isn't anything about it that I could look at and say, that looks wrong, or Airfix have really done a very thorough job. So I think if you've worked on these or worked around them, sorry, at all, I think you'll be very, very happy doing all of these models. So, okay, guys, we're coming up to 1 hour and 20 minutes, so I am going to go and keep my girlfriend happy now for a Friday evening, so we can actually have some time and not just me poking around at plastic. So thank you so much for joining me for finishing off the Sea King. It's a lovely model. If you're interested in helicopters or fancy something different for a 1/48 scale model, it's a great big chunky thing. I mean, you can get the size of it here. It's a really well engineered kit. You do get a mass of spares at the end of it. I've got a I think I showed on one of the other streams. I mean, this isn't even all of the spares. You know, you just get a big box and quite a few decals to put in the spares box. It's not a reason to buy a kit, of course, but it is nice to have spare bits and bobs that come in handy at some point in the future. It is a lovely looking thing when it's done, and if you want to go nuts and super detail it, there are tons of opportunities to do that. I just did it out of the box, and it was a very satisfying build. So thank you, everybody. If you want to, how long to build the kit? Well, it's been a month since I was at Historic Helicopters and received this. I haven't spent a month on it. As I say, it took 5 hours to decal the aircraft. How long have I spent on it? It's the actual build time isn't that long. A few evenings I've spent actually doing the build. I've broken it up a lot, of course, because I'm doing other stuff for the channel, and you know, I've got other commitments. The decaling was really the longest process. So I think if you just sat down and were only doing this, you could probably do it in a week, couple of weeks. Otherwise, you know, it's taken me a month of doing a whole bunch of other stuff to get this out. So, you know, I think if you wanted to spend longer, you absolutely could. And if you wanted to crack on and just, you know, get it out, you could probably do it in maybe a week. You know, if you just sat down and done it. Oh, hi, Sully. And thank you. I haven't weathered this at all, Sully. So I was saying earlier, I'm going to do a completely different video where I just have a look at weathering this. So I wanted to do it fairly clean for the build. But yeah, really, really nice kit. And I think anybody that has a go at it will be happy with what they produce. All right, guys, thanks very much for joining. Have a great evening. Have a fantastic weekend. Have a great bank holiday weekend if you're in the UK. And otherwise, as I say, I'll be putting out a fair few videos in the next week or so because I've got quite a backlog. This has kind of been occupying a lot of my my thoughts, and I've had a few other things in the stream as well. So it's been difficult to kind of crack on and do one thing. So there'll be quite a bit of activity in the next few days, one of which, of course, will be the shop update, as I mentioned before. So thanks, guys, and have a great one. Cheers now.